Tonight, we travel to Quebec, where winter air bites, diner lights glow on snow, and the smell of fresh fries mixes with laughter and late-night talk. Welcome to Worldwide Delicious, the place where food becomes a map you can taste. Our story is Poutine, born in the 1950s. A simple wonder built from crisp fries, fresh cheese curds that squeak when you chew, and a rich hot gravy that pulls everything into one warm embrace. It began as humble comfort, made for long shifts and colder nights, yet it climbed far beyond its home and ended up on menus around the world. But the best part is that its beginning is still wrapped in friendly mystery, told across counters, in small towns and in kitchens where steam fogs the windows. In Quebec, poutine is not a performance, it is a promise. It says you will leave warmer than you arrived. In this episode, we will trace how a local favorite spread through Canada, then leaped across borders through festivals, food trucks, and the irresistible pull of social media. Along the way, you will learn what makes a poutine feel authentic and how the textures are designed to change in your mouth, from crunch to cream to deep savory comfort. Stay with me, because by the end, you will understand why the simplest trio can feel like a celebration. Picture a plate arriving with steam rising, the gravy shining, the curds holding their shape, and the fries still proud. This is a dish that comforts you first, then makes you curious, and that curiosity is where our journey begins, right here, right now. If you love traveling with your appetite, subscribe to Worldwide Delicious, and join me for the next plate waiting somewhere on our global route. The origin of poutine sits under a warm fog of legend, like steam rising from a fresh plate in a cold room. Several small towns in Quebec claim they were there at the first moment, and each story sounds so believable that you end up wanting to accept them all. One tale leads to Warwick, to a roadside restaurant where people came in with wet boots and serious hunger. A customer asked for fries and fresh cheese curds in the same serving. No fuss, no ceremony, just the confidence of someone who knows what tastes right. The owner agreed, then looked at the mix and warned that it would make a real mess. Another version points to Drummondville, where a cook began serving fries, curds, and gravy together and later printed it on the menu as a signature item. Maybe it was one invention. Maybe it was many small inventions that finally met in the same bowl. What matters is why it spread so fast. The idea was simple, but the balance was perfect. The fries brought crunch and body. The curds brought a clean dairy bite and that famous squeak. And the gravy brought heat, salt, and depth that tied everything together. In Quebec winters, that combination felt like shelter. It was a dish you could eat standing at a counter, or share with friends after a game, or grab on a long drive when the road felt endless. People did not need a lesson to understand it. They only needed one forkful to remember it. And because it was born in ordinary places, it carried an honest personality. Poutine did not ask to be fancy. It asked to be satisfying. And that is why the story of its birth still belongs to everyone who takes the first bite. To understand why poutine hooks people, pause on the way each part behaves the moment they meet. The fries cannot be timid. They need to arrive golden and firm, with edges that crackle and a center that stays soft enough to drink in gravy without collapsing. Many cooks aim for a fry that holds its shape even as it soaks, so the dish stays lively from the first bite to the last. Then come the cheese curds, not shredded cheese, not a smooth melt, but fresh curds with irregular corners and a clean, milky aroma. They are meant to resist the heat just a little, so they soften while still keeping that gentle squeak that tells you they are fresh. Now the gravy arrives, and it has a job that looks simple but decides everything. It must be hot enough to warm the curds, thick enough to coat the fries, and savory enough to feel like a complete sauce, not just salt and color. When the gravy spreads, you get contrast and comfort at the same time. Crisp turns to tender, creamy turns to chewy, and the flavors stack. Potato, dairy, roasted depth, a little pepper, a little richness. This is why poutine does not feel like a side dish. It eats like a full story in a bowl. Picture it in a classic Quebec diner, a heavy plate on the counter, steam curling upward. A window behind you frosted with cold. Outside, wind moves snow across the parking lot. Inside, you hear low conversation, a radio, maybe hockey on a screen, and the simple sound of forks working fast. That scene matters, because poutine is not only taste, it is a moment of relief that feels earned. You take one bite, and your shoulders drop because warmth arrives immediately. For a while, poutine was a provincial secret, a delicious password that told you someone truly knew Quebec. But dishes with heart do not stay still. As people moved, traveled, and talked, poutine followed them, first as a curiosity, then as a craving you could not ignore. By the 1980s, it had spread across Canada, showing up in diners, fast food counters, and late-night spots where hunger is loud and patience is short. Its versatility made it easy to adopt. In Montreal, smoked meat often joined the party, adding peppery warmth and a deli perfume that matched the gravy. In other cities, cooks leaned into a more polished style, using deeper sauces, different cuts of potatoes, and careful plating while keeping the core idea intact. Big events helped too. At music festivals, it became a rescue snack after midnight, served fast and eaten faster. At hockey games, it felt inevitable because nothing pairs with cold air and loud cheers like hot gravy and crisp fries. Food trucks gave it wheels, rolling it into neighborhoods that had never tasted fresh curds before. And everywhere it landed, it brought people together. You did not need to share a language, a background, or a favorite team to agree on one thing: this tastes good. That simple agreement gave poutine a kind of unity. It became a national comfort, not because it was perfect, but because it was generous. Still, the closer you get to the original spirit, the more you notice one rule: fresh curds matter. When the curds are right, the dish feels alive, and even the simplest version tastes like Quebec itself. Some people eat it with a fork, some with a spoon, but everyone scrapes the bottom for the last streak of gravy, and that is the sign. The new century gave poutine a new engine: cameras, feeds, and instant curiosity. A bowl of golden fries, bright curds, and glossy gravy is made for a close shot. And people shared it because it looked like comfort you could reach through the screen. Food writers and travelers posted photos. Then their followers went looking, and the search turned into demand. Suddenly, people who had never seen a Quebec winter were asking where to find real cheese curds. At the same time, the global food truck movement carried poutine into new streets. A truck could bring it to a corner in New York, then to a night market in another country. Without needing a dining room or a long explanation, some vendors stayed classic: fries, curds, gravy, served hot, served fast. Others experimented with spice, smoked flavors, and local toppings, building bridges between Quebec and whatever city they parked in. That experimentation did something interesting. It made people more curious about the original. When you taste a creative version first, you start wondering what the simplest one tastes like in the place that made it. So poutine did not just spread outward. It pulled attention back toward Quebec. In that way, it became an edible ambassador, a dish that invites you to learn a little history while you chase a little pleasure. And unlike many viral foods, poutine held onto its soul because the foundation is honest. Potato, dairy, gravy, heat. That is a universal language. Change the accent if you want. The message stays the same. You are welcome here. Take a bite and feel better. You can spot the moment it hits a table. Heads turn, phones lift, and then the room quiets for a second. Because everyone knows what comes next: comfort. That is pure poutine power. Once poutine earned global attention, chefs did what chefs do. They played with it, started appearing in places that once would have avoided a dish with such humble roots. In gastropubs, it became a perfect partner for beer. because the gravy carries roasted depth and the fries keep your hands busy between sips. In higher-end rooms, it arrived on clean plates with careful portions, proving that comfort can wear a tailored jacket without losing its heart. Across the United States, cooks added regional twists: pulled pork for sweetness and smoke, spicy peppers for heat, or house gravies made from long-simmered bones. In Europe, bistros and cafes gave it a different accent. In Paris, you might see duck confit on top, with a red wine reduction that leans deep and glossy. In London, you might find blue cheese and caramelized onions, sharp and sweet at the same time. These versions can be delicious, but they also teach a lesson. The dish only works when the basics are respected. If the fries are soft from the start, everything turns heavy. If the gravy is thin, it slides away and leaves the bite flat. If the cheese melts into a single blanket, you lose the signature squeak that signals freshness. Great poutine balances heat and structure, so each spoonful shifts from crunch to tenderness, from salty to savory, from simple to satisfying. And when chefs get it right, they do not erase Quebec, they highlight it, reminding the world that a roadside idea can become a canvas without becoming a joke. Many people taste a fancy version first, then they go searching for the original in Quebec. In a small diner where the plate is heavy and the portion is generous, that comparison makes the classic shine. Every single time. Beyond flavor, poutine became a symbol. In Quebec, it reflects a francophone heritage that values straightforward pleasure and does not apologize for being filling. Across Canada, it turned into a shared comfort, something you can offer at a party or a fair and watch strangers become friends over the same steam and the same gravy. That accessibility is part of its cultural weight. You do not need a special occasion to eat it, but it somehow makes any occasion feel better. It shows up on Canada Day tables at winter festivals, at food fairs that celebrate national dishes, and at late-night gatherings where someone says they know a place that does it right. It even inspired events dedicated entirely to poutine, where vendors serve many interpretations and fans debate which gravy has the deepest roast, which fry holds the best crunch, and which curd squeaks the loudest. Tourists arrive in Montreal or Quebec City with a mission to taste a real one, hot, fresh, and honest. They take the photo, of course, but then the better thing happens. They ask questions. They learn about diners in small towns, about winter roads, about the way local food carries local identity. In that sense, poutine acts like a bridge. It connects people to a place through something as simple as potatoes and cheese. And every time it appears on a menu far from Quebec, it plants a small seed of curiosity. A reminder that even the most familiar comfort foods have a home, a history, and a community behind them. When you share a plate, you share a pace. You slow down, you laugh, you point to the best corner where the gravy is thickest, and you agree that the simplest ideas often travel the farthest. That is why it endures. Now we return to the bowl, because every food story should end where the steam rises. Poutine moved from a Quebec diner to a global stage, and it did it without changing its core promise: warmth, balance, and satisfaction. The magic is not complicated. It is the crunch of fries meeting a gravy that tastes like patience. It is fresh curds holding their shape just long enough to squeak, then softening into creamy comfort. It is the way each bite shifts, salty, savory, rich, then somehow light again because the textures keep you moving forward. So when you see poutine on a menu, pause for a moment. Look for real curds. Look for gravy that clings. Look for fries that still have pride. If you can, try it in Quebec one day. In a small diner where the plate is heavy and the window is fogged, because place adds a quiet flavor you cannot bottle. But wherever you eat it, remember what it represents. A simple combination can become a cultural icon. A local comfort can become a shared language. And a humble late-night dish can carry a whole region in a single spoonful. In every city, someone is discovering poutine for the first time. And that first bite always carries the same surprise. How can something so basic feel so complete? That surprise is joy, and joy is the reason we keep exploring food. Meet me here for the next story. Thank you for traveling with me on Worldwide Delicious. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next destination on our table. Leave a comment with the version you would try: classic and simple, or creative and bold. Until next time, keep your curiosity hungry and keep your plate ready.